WGSN-DB Going Solo Network welcomes you to award-nominated relationship internet radio talk show, Going Solo with Cece. Host Cece Shatz is a speaker, author, blogger, and the leading transitional divorce and dating coach with My Friends Connect and Going Solo Next Step. Now, together, let's join Cece.
Well, hello there. This is Cece with Going Solo, and it's so great to have you all back with us today. And today we are going to be talking about soul repair after infidelity, which is, a really hot topic because so many people have to go through this. They're so hurt, so devastated, and it is just probably really one of the hardest situations to get over or actually to move through. So today with us, we have Lauren McKinley, and she's the founder of Her Soul Repair. And she also is going to be the author of Stop Wrecking My Home, which is going to be out in the fall of 2016. So we're really excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's so nice to have you. It's very parallel with what you do and what I do. You really do help individuals through probably one of the hardest, difficult situations in their lives. And so tell me, how did you get into doing what you're doing now?
I think when everything transpired with my marriage, I just thought, I need to make something good come of this horrible situation. And the more I reached out to women who had gone through a similar situation as I did, the more I realized there was really a need for that community to rebuild and repair your soul. When you have gone through something so traumatic, you need that community of women who have also gone through it to help move forward.
Yeah, I so agree with that. I feel that, and I have a divorce support group, but it's for both men and women. But it's the community of like-minded individuals that can make that connection and understand pain that they're going through and the relatability with that understanding. Because people outside your relationship or how you're feeling, your family and friends, they understand it, but they just don't get how the pain, this total pain that you go through.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so nice to have, others that do understand that. I was looking at your website, and it's hersoulrepair.com, and I was looking at a couple things that struck me, and your little information that you had given on there about a truth seeker, you're a mama of one, you're a teacher by and a writer of passion. And I thought that intrigued me. I thought that was really cool because a truth seeker, could you explain a little bit further what you mean by that?
Sure. I put that down as truly part of who I am and my beliefs and my faith, but also just seeking out what can bring you peace, what can bring you hope in any given situation. So for this situation in particular, finding out that my ex-husband had an affair and that our marriage was just holding on by a thread, you're really trying to seek out any sort of truth that can get you through that hardship.
That is so true. And I hear that often, and I've experienced it myself, is you ultimately, when you're in a relationship like that, you have this bonding relationship, this fellowship, so to speak, with the husband and wife, and you have this trust factor. And when you find out that they've stepped out of the marriage, your trust is broken, but a lot of other things happens within you. You start questioning everything. And you wonder what is true and what isn't true. And that really struck me when you said that you're a truth seeker, is because when you're going through that, and I know how I felt, and I know how many that I've talked to feel, it's like, you just start questioning everything. Is today really Monday, or is today really Friday? You really start thinking, okay, wait a minute, am I in a time warp or something?
Oh, absolutely. And especially within the marriage, you go back and you second guess, well, did he really feel that way? Was that a real moment we shared? I mean, you can you can really go into that downward spiral if you're not careful what you're letting your mind fixate on.
And I know, too, that you get, you know, the betrayal is so strong when they step out of the marriage like that. And I remember for myself, we went into counseling, and I was just, and this was the second go around for me with my ex. And so we went to counseling, and I remember sitting there, and I remember her talking to us about it and everything. And I was just in this zone period, and I was just, I just wanted him to hurt as bad as he hurt me. And I remember saying to me, well, part of the therapy, well, you love him, right? And I said, no, I don't love him. I never loved him. And he got so upset over that. And of course, I loved him. I mean, I was married to him for all these years. You know, we have a child together.
Right.
But I just wanted to hurt him as bad as he hurt me. And even that, I didn't feel like I had hurt him bad enough. And it's
right.
You become a totally different person, don't you? You get like totally warped out. But then when you start settling back down again and you start looking at everything like you had said, it's repairing your soul, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think you go into survival mode when the initial trauma happens or the initial betrayal really takes over. But then after you've kind of accepted what happened and moved forward, then it's like, okay, well, how do I repair? Because, you know, for that window of time, I remember I felt like I was just surviving. I was fighting for my marriage. I wanted my marriage to work, but it was very one-sided. And so each day was just get through this day. You know, and that probably went on for about a year.
Yes, it does take time. It takes time because you move forward a little bit and then you step back. But the thing for me, and I wonder if you can answer this about other people, is that for me, what I started healing, when I started repairing myself, and I started thinking about the relationship more. And even though I was, like you said, you know, trying to find out the truth, trying to think, you know, you think all these negative things and you start dissecting all of it. What I started seeing more and more is I saw signs that I never saw before. I saw different things within myself that maybe I could have done differently. And so then I started understanding a little bit more about myself, about the relationship. Find that in your line of work?
I do. I see that in couples, especially when they're like, oh, I didn't see that red flag, or wow, I see how that relationship was probably not the best with my husband and a female coworker, for instance. So I think it is easy to go back and see those red flags in hindsight. I definitely knew that my ex-husband did have a lot of friendships with females, and it was never something that I really was all that fond of, but they were there nonetheless. And that is something that I'm very in tune to now, of just like, is that appropriate? And really aware of what is an appropriate friendship and relationship once you're in a committed marriage.
So what would you give if you were talking to someone today that's starting to go through this? Any advice that you can give them at the beginning of a step to go forward?
Well, if you've just found out about an affair, I would say that you should try for some sort of reconciliation or some sort of counseling. If there's anything left to salvage your marriage, especially if you have children, I always think that is the best bet, in my opinion. If you are coming out of an affair and that work has already been done and the counseling and there's really nothing left to rebuild of the marriage, then my advice would just to move forward, embracing all of the things about yourself that you love and not letting the torment of the affair and all of that probably did to your self-esteem get you down. I would say just focus on the qualities about yourself that you really love and just rebuild those and let them help you move forward on your own.
That's great advice. That's very good advice. I noticed too on your website you had your 3 main take-homes, you called them, for getting through the work day on when you're going through something like this. And I thought that was really very good. And I agree with you wholeheartedly on them. So I wondered if you wanted to share that with them.
Sure.
Your first one is about getting emails.
Absolutely. So I went back to work mid-divorce, and I had been a stay-at-home mom prior. So that was already a pretty crazy transition for me. When I was back at work, we had not finalized our divorce yet, and there were things throughout the day that were very difficult to cope with emotionally if I were checking an email or responding to a text message in regards to the divorce. So a couple pointers that I came out of in just getting through that workday were just do not check any divorce emails from your lawyer, from your ex-husband, from anyone that has a question about what's your custody going to look like? Have you finished that home appraisal? Nothing, because it will just emotionally jolt you to a place where you're not able to do your job as best that you can, and it will kind of just throw a wrench into your workday as a professional. So that was the real take home for me was just ignore those lawyer emails until you are home or until you're in your car and you're not going to break into a crying fit in the middle of the workday. The second one was kind of using your workday as a mental escape. It's so exhausting going through a divorce, and there's so much emotional exhaustion that happens. If you can all separate those two and really emotionally engage in your work and kind of separate the two parts of your mind, I would say that's a nice escape from the real life drama you're experiencing. And then the third one that I thought was really helpful to me was just to choose who you share your life with in terms of coworkers very wisely. You just don't need any rumors happening or any sort of talk going on, because most likely you're experiencing enough of that in your own circles, personal circles about the divorce. You do not need to bring that to the workplace.
That is so true. So often we do share our lives with people because we just need to talk. We need to kind of, especially women tend to be a little bit more like that, but we want to share it with someone else and they can really use that against us, or maybe think we're not focused on our work or anything like that. And so I agree with you on that. It's to be very cautious, and it's nice to, like you said, have a community of people that are like-minded, going through what you're going through, and you can share those things with them and they get it. Oh yeah, they know exactly what you say. And something I might add too, with what you said with regards to texting, I think that's excellent advice, and I so heartedly agree with that, Lauren. But one thing I would add, and this helped me, is at first I felt that as soon as I got an email or something like that, I needed to respond right away. Then I started thinking, well, why do I need to respond right away? If it's not something that's urgent, my knee-jerk reaction, 9 times out of 10, is going to be more emotional. So however I respond to him is probably not going to be in a very good way, and not very good light.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's going to make me look really bad. And so what I started doing is if it wasn't something that needed to be addressed that minute, I would sit on it for a day or two. I would allow myself to diffuse, be as mad as I wanted to be over it. Maybe I might type up something and keep it in a draft, and then go back and look at it when I was ready to calm down and really look at the issues, rather than say, okay, you dirtbag, whatever. But, you just get so emotional as women,
Yes.
And men too. I mean, I have some guys, in the group that, like, wow, I really want to give it to her. But I found that if I waited a day or two, sometimes I didn't even need to respond. And that made me feel better because I felt like I was taking more control of my life and I wasn't allowing it to swing out of control. And that's probably, how you felt, I would think, when you started going through your divorce and finding out, that your partner stepped out on you.
Yes, those emotional swings can be hard to deal with, definitely. But I think, again, it's kind of, if you feel the need to have an emotional lash out, you just call a friend or call someone who's gone through it and have that emotional moment and that venting with that person, and don't bring it to, your lawyer or your ex-spouse, because that will get you in more trouble and you will regret those conversations later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I've noticed about your website and reading a little bit more about your bio and talking with you a little bit previously before today's show, is that one of the things, if forgive me if I'm incorrect on this, but one of the things that you did, and I thought it might help other listeners, it seemed like you've turned more towards your passion. And as you said, a writer by passion. And so you kind of embrace that, of course, the loving of your daughter, you've been able to sink your love and goodness into her. But the passion that you have for writing, you've really kind of opened that up, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that was a really great coping mechanism for me. I didn't jump back into dating or think that was going to be solving all of my problems at the time. I really channeled that pain into my writing, and it helped me see a purpose in all the suffering I had gone through, because it just gave me this, well, I can help women who've gone through it. And, when I realized that my marriage was falling apart and my husband had an affair, I didn't feel that community as much from other people, because no one is that open necessarily about, oh, my spouse cheated on me, or, oh, I'm going through a divorce. And I felt isolated at times, and I felt like no one really understood what I was going through. And that's a bad feeling, especially when you're already experiencing the trauma of an affair. So I think I took all that I went through and I was like, there needs to be a greater purpose with this hardship. And my writing helped me to reach out to other women who had gone through something similar and just be that support to them, so they knew they weren't alone in this.
And it's so true. It's nice to be able to put it down on paper. I know that with the divorce support group that I run, the emailing that we have within it is a huge factor, and both men and women, right? And we'll talk about a particular topic or how they're feeling. And it allows them to be able to freely express themselves within a very controlled environment that they feel safe in. And so with your writing, it's been distributed to other places. And so you do write beautifully. And it's nice to be able to share that and share your emotions in a very well constructive, positive, even though you're talking about a very heavy subject, positive way. So I commend you on that.
Thank you.
You definitely are helping people. So is there anything you'd like to share with our audience that you feel that it's a message that you want to be able to, get out to them?
I would say if you have gone through some sort of betrayal, whether it be infidelity or just in a different form within your marriage, I am so sorry. There's nothing easy about it, and you aren't alone in it, sadly. But do what you need to maintain your self-respect, and do what you need to maintain your dignity. And if that means leaving a marriage that's not healthy, that's okay. And you will get through it in one piece and move forward.
Yeah, that's excellent. I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. And we are listening to Laura McKinley, and she is the founder of Her Soul Repair. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about soul repair after infidelity. And this is Cece with Going Solo, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. This is Madam Coach Correa, Love and Pillow Talk, WGSN-DB radio show. Join me every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern and learn about love relationships and how they relate to your soulmate.
Well, welcome back. This is Cece with Going Solo, and we have with us Lauren McKinley, the founder of Her Soul Repair. She's also going to be the author of Stop Wrecking My Home, which will be soon released here in 2016. She has a website, which is called hersoulrepair.com. And we're talking about soul repair after infidelity. And a little bit before the break, we were talking kind of a little bit about her background, where she's from, what she's been doing, and how she really got to doing what she's doing now. And basically, like a lot of us, she's come out of a bad situation, and she's trying to make the best of it. So we are so glad to have Lauren on the show. So thank you for coming back and sticking with me over the break, Lauren. Well, what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk a little bit more about Lauren really got in touch with her higher being. You know, she took the course Divorce Care, and it seemed to help her a great deal. So tell us a little bit about the course and how you felt about that.
Well, Divorce Care for me was so amazing because you would come to this safe place where everyone was going through either a divorce or a separation, and you were experiencing the same raw emotions, and you could talk about them, and you could hear someone share a helpful tip that got them through, say, the initial separation. And then you could see someone who's maybe 6 months ahead of you and the progress they've made, and sharing their encouragement of, okay, it gets easier. This is what helps me. So I really love the program because of that support, but also just because of the structured topics that were covered. So Divorce Care is a faith-based program, so there were a lot of Christian elements to the program, but there were also just a lot of divorce-related topics that we would learn about, we would have small group discussions on, and we would just share what helped us and what we were struggling with that week, whether it be just itemizing your losses within a divorce, like, oh, I'm losing a friend, I'm not just losing a spouse, or, oh, I'm losing a future family, and really just taking apart the whole divorce process and sharing with one another where we were at and how we were doing.
Again, so important for us because there's so many elements on healing. You know, you have to do, as you are well aware, and you're focusing on that healing of the soul, but you know, that also contains with your spirit, you know, your spiritual being, your higher power, how you get in touch with that to physically heal. And sometimes, you know, going through such trauma takes a physical toll on us. And so health-wise, we have to kind of get more in check with our health and do what we need to do to be able to really kind of get over the trauma, but also put some positive and earthly-like good food into our bodies with good exercise. And also the emotional aspect of it. And so that brings me to the family. How do you cope? Now, you have a little daughter, and how do you, after, you know, infidelity, you know, with your daughter, and how do you move forward, you know, with that, with family?
Well, I think the fact that I do have a daughter from the broken marriage really gives purpose to everything that I went through. And that's the perspective I take. I just think to myself, I would go through this all again if it meant that I have my daughter. It's such a beautiful silver lining when you think about it in that light. The co-parenting is tricky because you are dealing with a person that has hurt you so deeply, But again, keeping the focus on the child is so crucial. I think to myself, I would not have my child if it weren't for her father. And it gives you that light of, okay, you know, I have to look at him in that sense and not in the sense of someone who destroyed our marriage, who betrayed me, and all of those other aspects.
So you have to understand, you start separating it, don't you? Start separating.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, there's a blessing to have a child and the union of both of you. And so you don't want to take that negativeness into your family, but you can't help it. It's prevalent, something that you have to deal with. But most certainly being able to focus on the positive with your daughter is definitely godsend, isn't it?
Right. And I mean, we are very careful in how we talk in front of our daughter, in terms of we want to teach her respect for every individual. And as a parent, if you are talking negatively about her other parent who is half of her, that's not exemplifying the respect that you are trying to teach her to show to everyone around her.
That is so true. You want to show respect. And, your kids do look at you. They do watch you on how you handle difficult situations in your life. And so you want to show her that, she's going to find out all the stuff as time goes by. I mean, kids just find out things that you don't always want them to know, but they do. You do want to show her that even in some of the darkest times in our lives, there's still a silver lining. There's still something positive to reach for. And, you did that with focusing on your daughter and making sure that she understands that you are still a family unit, which is a great thing.
Right. And to come across as united as you can as parents, I think is really important. So whether that be focusing on the same parenting techniques, whatever you can do to keep it consistent. And I know sometimes there are more difficulty with ex-spouses and more animosity, but anything you can do to kind of remove that from the influence of the child is so important.
That is so true. Now, what would you say when you're stepping out into other relationships? When you start to because I always feel like you have to kind of restructure, redefine your life. So how do you feel about that when you're starting to step out and you're starting to make new friends and new relationships?
I think a big thing for me when moving forward after the divorce and just making new friends who didn't know me in my former marriage was not feeling the stigma that divorce defines you. So I do feel the need to tell people that I'm meeting, if it's appropriate, I was married before, and this is a little of my story, because it's such a big part of my life. It's helping people with divorce recovery. But it doesn't have to be this negative stigma that you wear a scarlet letter the rest of your life. I've been divorced, or my husband cheated on me. I think there is a difference in letting it take on a part of who you are, because it absolutely will, but not having it define you negatively.
That's very well said. That's very well said. And that is so true, is because you do have to understand where you are, and you have to be able to move forward. And so to look at, and I know one thing you kind of refer to a great deal in some of your writings is like a fresh start. And I like that, because it's not something that we can always do it in life. And so even though this is a horrible thing that we've gone through, and we wouldn't wish it on anybody, we hope marriage is a happy one and is a successful one, and one that you want to be in. But when something like this happens to you, you sometimes don't have a choice. But to think about it, after you've recovered a bit and after you're ready to start moving on as a fresh start is really a good way of looking at it.
Right. And it's like a new life, really, when you think of it. The old life that you had with your ex-spouse and all of those dreams and all that encompassed it is not here. It's it's dead. So to think of you have this new life moving forward is a great, fresh perspective in just what the future holds.
Now, did you write a lot when you were married?
I did. I've always been a big journaler, so I have journals of pretty much every stage of my life. And I do have 100 pages of writing from right when I found out about the affair to kind of mid-divorce. And I share it sometimes in different parts of my writing. It will be in my book, but it's so raw and so just in the moment that you can't remember those emotions sometimes unless they're written down. And you're like, wow, I felt so awful and so betrayed and so devastated.
And it's so great that you can use your talent to be able to share that with everyone and, again, have that relatability, because there's so many people out there that do feel alone. So when they read your book, I can't wait for it to read it myself, because when they read your book, they're going to feel that connection. And I think it's really a great thing to be able to, it's a gift you're giving to other people. And so I think it's wonderful that you do that. But the thing is like, I was just thinking as you were talking is, even though you're a writer and your passion has always been writing, you've just written in journal. And now, had it not been for the divorce, I wouldn't probably have written a book, or at least a book like this. And so
exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of what motivated the book too was when I was going through this, all of the self-help books about affairs and betrayal, they were all very somber and serious. And it's already such a heavy topic. You almost need something a little lighthearted interwoven in the advice. So what I try to do is just keep it as light as I can, with also having that practical advice. And also, all of the books I read, the marriage ended up being restored. And for me, that wasn't the case. And that was very discouraging to me at times, because I thought, oh, well, if I read this book and I follow this counseling program, then my marriage is going to work out. And it didn't. And so I think a lot of my motivation is showing women, even if your marriage doesn't work out, you can still move forward in one piece and have a very happy and fulfilling life.
That's very good for people to hear and for women to hear, because so often they don't, and they become martyrs and things like that. And that's certainly not what you want in life. You don't want a bitter person. Thing I've always said is that I feel like we have to understand the demise of our relationship. We have to understand the part that we played in it. But what we can't do is take ownership of that. And so often when we talk about forgiveness of the other party, we feel it. We have to take ownership of that. We can still forgive and be able to move on. And sometimes I feel that thing of forgiveness and indifference are very different from each other. So a hard and a long stage to get to. So when you deal with infidelity, is be able to, because I know when I first heard that, I thought, you got to be kidding me about forgiving. That ain't
right
in my world. But
I remember thinking, wait, this is the exception to the whole forgiveness thing. This is it, right?
I know. And I wonder how many people have said that. But then as you move forward, I think we do start to begin to feel that indifference and that wholeness coming back into our lives. So I really appreciate what you do. And I think you have a gift. You truly have a great gift in writing. And I hope that this will only be your first book that's coming out. I hope that you will continue your passion for writing. So it's great what you do. I love your site. I think it's really going to help women. And I'm glad that even though you've gone through this horrible, difficult time, I'm very happy that you have restructured and redefined your life in a very positive aspect. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to share part of my story with you.
Well, it's wonderful, and it's enlightening. It's heartbreaking, though, at times, know that someone had to go through the pain in order to come to the other side. And it's a very difficult thing for everyone. But I know that you are getting there. You have definitely improved in your life, and you're willing to see that and share that with other people. So it's a wonderful thing. So let's share again, Lauren McKinley, and it's she does have a site. She's a founder of Her Soul Repair. You are on Facebook, so they can connect you with Facebook. I think you're on Twitter and Pinterest and all of the social media sites. So, and then, of course, your book's going to be coming out here soon in the fall of 2016. So if you're hearing this after 2016 and we're replaying it, I want you to run out and buy the book. But it's called Wrecking My Home, and that it's a great title, Stop Wrecking My Home. Is there a particular reason you chose that title?
Well, I think when you're dealing with a home wrecker who has taken your husband and the life you wanted, it's kind of that message, like, please stop wrecking my home. Like, give me my life back. And in my case, it didn't turn out that way. And so you can still see, though, at the end of it, how life goes on. And even if it's in a different capacity than you thought, you're still in one piece.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great smack back, and I love that. So it's it's really to the point, and it's a very direct. And I'm so glad to see that you can smile and laugh and enjoy life, and that you found your passion. So that's a great thing. So everyone, please make sure that you buy her book, which is Stop Wrecking My Home. Hopefully, when it comes out, you can come back and share a little bit about it with us. That would be great. And also
absolutely
check out her site, which is Her Soul Repair, and that's Lauren McKinley. Well, thank you so much for being on Going Solo with Cece. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Great. All right. Well, I hope that you, the listeners, will be back with us next week when we talk a little bit more about how you can get through to living your best life. So this is Cece for now, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
I'm getting stronger without you, baby.